And now, our feature presentation.
The best in the world is right here, right now.
Whether you like it or don't like it, pal, learn to love it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome. All right, listen up.
Now it's our time to step forward. It's time to bring the NWA back into the spotlight.
I was thinking that it might be a good idea if you and I formed an alliance.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Attention, everyone. Welcome to the greatest wrestling program in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
It's the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin, Frazier, DKM.
Enough of the introduction, enough of the video. Let's just get to it, guys. It has been far too long, and the Alliance Guys are reunited, and it feels so right. You guys, look who we found. We put him in the middle because we know we both wanted to be close to him. This is the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. And with me, of course, is my good pal DKM, and of course, the returning former world junior heavyweight champion, Kevin Frazier. Kevin, welcome back. The guys in the chat are happy to see you. Are you happy to be here?
Man, I am pumped up. I'm pulling the chat up right now so I can, say hello to everybody. Glad to be back, amidst everything that could have happened, that did happen. Sorry, I had to turn it off. But, just glad to see you guys back. James, Terry, Dave, Scooby, Jimmy. Glad to see you guys, again. And just glad to be back. Went on vacation. I mean, if you name it, it happened. Got COVID. And even tonight I had to scratch and claw to get on here. But I'm glad to be here, glad to see you guys, and glad to talk some wrestling finally.
Well, we're glad to have you. DK, how are you doing, my brother?
Well, I'm alive, and for right now, that's what we'll stick with.
Hey, we'll take that. We'll take you being alive, because if you were, well, never mind. Never mind. So
we'll take you being alive, DK.
Because if I were undead, you'd be scared. You wouldn't have to be dead.
You know what? And
that might be kind of cool.
I don't want to bring up some bad stuff because we are going to talk about it, but there have been some recent passings in the NWA family, so I can't stomach another one, DK. So you're going to have to at least last till September because, we lost 3 wrestling personalities in the last 3 days, and really even before that, just a couple weeks ago it was Paul, Mr. Wonderful Orndorff. And now we've lost we've lost Jody Hamilton, the Assassin. We've lost Bert Prentice, longtime promoter out of the Tennessee area, Memphis, Memphis or Nashville. He's been around those parts for quite some time. And then of course today the shocking news that we lost beautiful Bobby Eaton of the Midnight Express, and I'm a little crushed, I'll be honest. I'm a little deflated. Of course, to me, not that I had a relationship with any of these guys, but I grew up watching Bobby Eaton. And I always thought that he was one of those guys that just did all the little things correctly. I always felt like Bobby Eaton was that guy who, if you were a wrestler coming up in the business, that's the guy you want to emulate. You want to throw punches like Bobby Eaton. You want to throw leg drops like Bobby Eaton. You want to do drop kicks like Bobby Eaton. And, for someone who, I did a little bit of research today, but, we always talk about how he was a tag team champion with Dennis Condrey or Sweet Stan Lane. But that guy literally held tag team titles with Koko Beware, Mr. Pogo, a hardcore Japanese legend. And, he just did so much. Arn Anderson, they held the WCW tag team titles. So, it's kind of a rough day knowing someone that you've, at least for me, idolized growing up, watching him. He was a guy you never I mean, he just did his job. He came out there and wrestled, and he did it well. So it took a little bit of wind out of my sails. Kevin, you're the only one of us that have stepped in the ring. What did Bobby Eaton mean to you? Do you have any stories about Bobby Eaton?
You know, it's funny. I believe I have been in the same building or the same locker room with him a few times. Nothing. I didn't have a relationship with him like I have with some of the other guys from his era that I got to be around. But as far as just a person being influenced by it, I mean, Bobby was never a really big guy as far as being a wrestler. And so for someone like me to see a guy like that, you know, one of the things about halfway through my career that I wanted to make sure that I could do was wrestle in the heavyweight division. And so guys that made a living in that division that were around my size were guys that I really drew a lot from. And so he would definitely be one of those people that I watched and really enjoyed. But, you know, at the same time, when you're teaching a wrestler, especially like what you'd consider a mid-sized type wrestler, someone who's not excessively athletic, but or not excessively big, this kind of that middle of the road, really good athlete, but maybe not an acrobat, not really huge, muscular type wrestler. I mean, Bobby Eaton is like the kind of guy you would have him watch in his tag matches, especially with the Midnight Express, and that against teams that, gosh, I think it was Fantastics. You know, obviously the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express. I'm sorry that they were the Midnight Express. No, there were, you know, there were just a handful of tag teams during that time that arguably, obviously the Four Horsemen, that arguably you could make an argument that might have been the greatest era of tag team wrestling since color TV. So, and he was a part of that, and he was highly respected and highly held in high acclaim in terms of wrestlers types. You know, what you would call like a wrestler's wrestler. He's a wrestler's wrestler because he could get so much out of so little. He could do so much, but when he did a lot, it actually meant something, and it made sense when he did it. As where, you know, a lot of the stuff today, and I'm not critical of it because I loved wrestling today, but a lot of the stuff today doesn't have really any semblance behind why you're doing it or anything of that nature. You never had that with Bobby Eaton. So as far as the guys that we're mentioning, he would be the one that I have the most to say about, just because the other two guys, I didn't watch the Assassin. That's probably more DK's time frame, and I don't know a lot about Prentice. So, you know, that's my thing as far as that's what I got to say. The Freebirds too, about, you know, Bobby Eaton, and honestly, this is the first I heard of it, and it's, you know, it's a bummer. I hate to hear it, and, you know, just lifting up his family and friends and all those that are affected by the loss.
DK, you have anything you want to add to that?
You know, I actually got to see the Midnight Express of Beautiful Bobby and Loverboy Dennis a couple of times when they were here in Texas, 3 or 4. So I got to see them live, and it was really something to wonder at, because there were people who did moves off the top rope, but not like Bobby did. And he really was kind of groundbreaking at that point. And, you know, he was part of arguably one of the greatest tag teams ever. Both versions of that, both major versions of that tag team. But I think the thing that really talks about him as a person was, I don't know anyone who did not like him. I don't know anyone who knew him and said, you know, Bobby was a nice guy, but sometimes he could be or whatever. Everybody loved him. He was quiet, he was unassuming, you know, which is like where Kevin's like, yeah, you could be in a locker room with him, but, you know, he was just even as a veteran and the star, he was just kind of a quiet guy. He was there to do his work. When they did an event to honor him, the joke of the event was, don't tell Bobby, because it was being advertised all over social media and the internet, but Bobby wasn't plugged in.
Yeah.
And so, that was a big joke. Don't tell Bobby. Because the only way he would know is if somebody told him. And if I have to have a favorite story about him, and we talk about him being this quiet and unassuming guy, Jim Cornette tells a story of when they were wrestling the Freebirds after the Freebirds won the World Tag Team title in the NWA, the combination of Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes. And apparently Hayes and Garvin were trying to come off more as tough guys, and they didn't really like to sell. And it was leading to some problems with them. And especially between the teams. So there was a night where there was a 6-man match, and it was the Freebirds with Terry Gordy, and the Midnight Express was Dr. Death Steve Williams.
Oh.
And
wow.
Like someone said, like Cornette said, he goes, Gordy was like the only one in the match on that side that would sell, and he was the only one in the match on that side that shouldn't have sold. And so I guess things had kind of broke down and things got a little bit stiff, and Steve Williams went after Jimmy Carvin with a chair, one of those old wooden chairs, and he was plastering him with it. He was putting his arms up, and there was scrapes and blood, and I think he may have even got a fracture or something from Dr. Death Williams beating on him. And so the Freebirds retreated to the back, and the Midnight Express went after him, and Steve Williams was there behind him, and they got to the locker room, and things were about ready to go down when I guess Bobby Eaton yelled out something to the effect of, damn, we don't mind putting you over, but you got to give us something.
Yeah.
And nobody had ever seen Bobby mad. And it was just like everything chilled after that because everybody was in shock. And so, it was like, damn, Bobby spoke. And so he had his say, he left, and the rest of the Midnight and Cornette left with him, Dr. Death and everything. So it was just, he's the only person that by being bad could diffuse the situation.
That's called respect.
Yeah.
Respect. That's what respect is right there.
We're gonna get to some more of the NWA news and information that has been coming out the last couple hours, last few days, and we're also gonna get to the Champion Series. Of course, that's very important to us. That's what we like to do, is kind of recap what happened at NWA POWERRR, but just want to take a few more minutes to talk about some of these guys who we recently lost. Now, I'm not a huge Assasin fan. I don't know much about Jody Hamilton. I know his son was Nick Patrick in WCW. I know he held a lot of acclaim. A lot of people really much cared for the Assasin. I know the Assassins as a tag team, they did the whole Killer Bee thing with Hercules Hernandez and Jody would switch sides outside the ring because of the mask, and the referee would never know the difference between the guy who was a little bit more heavier set and a guy who was built like a brick house. And so I know that I've heard those stories. I also know that he had a career that lasted 31 years in active professional wrestling, which is almost unheard of these days. And the fact that he wrestled for so long and then had a fruitful life outside of the ring. Again, I only have heard good things about Mr. Jody Hamilton, and we're sorry for his family and for those who were affected by his loss. DK, do you have any stories about the Assassin?
Well, I'll tell you this much. If you want to know about him, don't go to Wikipedia, because when they talk about parts of his career, they're 100% wrong. But for those who don't know, Jody Hamilton, like Jay said, is probably better known among modern people as being the father of Nick Patrick, the referee. And too many people around today probably only remember him when he was older and had gotten pretty heavy and didn't move very well or whatever. But believe it or not, he wasn't the original Assassin. He's called the Assassin #1. He wasn't the original Assassin. Tom Ernesto was the original Assassin. He had a couple of different partners. And Jody Hamilton was his last and longest and most famous partner. So Hamilton actually started out as Assassin #2. And they wrestled across the world. And the only place where they didn't wrestle as the Assassins was in Carolinas, because he was already, Tom Ernesto was already known in the Carolinas under a different name. And so when they went to the Carolinas, they wrestled underneath those names. Bolo, I think. And so when Ernesto finally retired, and Hamilton came back as the Assassin, then that's when he was the Assassin #1. And he had a few different partners. The main one was Randy Collier, one of the Moondogs.
Yeah, okay.
I forget which one. Rex, I think. He also wrestled under a mask in Mid-South as the Nightmare. Collier did. But they were probably the best known Assassin 1 and Assassin 2. And then when Collier left, that's when he brought in Assassin #3. Assassin #3 was Hercules Hernandez.
Okay.
And he did that in a couple different areas, or a couple different times. One time, after Assassin 3 lost, Assassin 1 beat him up and took his mask and told him he didn't have the right to be an assassin anymore. And another time, Assassin 3, Hernandez was unmasked in the ring. And at the time, nobody knew who he was. This was before he was Hercules Hernandez. And so he was unmasked and, running to the back with his hair and beard and everything like that. Everybody's going, "Who's that? Who is that?" We don't know who that is. Which, if another guy unmasked, we'd get a lot of here, too. And, but as a tag team, the Assassins, with Ernesto and him, they feuded with the Kentuckians. And they drew money everywhere. Everywhere. They were a top tag team feud. They would go to all the different territories and have the same feud. And they would main event and they would sell out. And then later in his career, he's probably best known as working for Paul Jones, part of Paul Jones' army, and feuding a lot with Dusty Rhodes. But he was a very talented guy. He did some promoting on his own. He was Deep South. He was a Deep South promoter. If you've ever heard of that wrestling promotion, they actually worked as a developmental territory at the same time as Ohio Valley did. And he was on the creative team a couple different times and worked as an agent and different things in WCW. So, in the business a long time, knew a lot. just part of that generation, unfortunately, you know, it's 82, that's moving on.
Yeah. So again, our condolences to the family of the assassin. And then, of course, you know, I'd be remiss if we didn't bring up Bert Prentice. You know, a lot of times we get credit for being the wilderness show of record here for the NWA, because we talk so much about that time frame when WCW departed from the National Wrestling Alliance before the NWA was licensed by the Jarretts for TNA. But there was that time, that space in the middle where you had a lot of NWA things happening, and one of the cogs in that wheel was Bert Prentice, both with Music City Wrestling and in his involvement with Music City Wrestling, and having Bill Behrens come from the USWA, which was Jerry Lawler's wrestling promotion, to Music City Wrestling with Bert Prentice. Basically got the ball rolling for what would end up becoming NWA Wildside. And if it hadn't been for that time in USWA, Bill Behrens and Bert Prentice, and then in Music City Wrestling, of course, a lot of what we have today with the NWA would not exist. And then furthermore, it was that promotion, Music City Wrestling, that was more or less responsible for bringing credibility to the North American Championship once it returned from the WWE. I mean, you have to remember that title was taken off of oh gosh, I can't remember his name now, Reckless Youth, and given to Jeff Jarrett to compete with that NWA Invasion storyline of Raw back in, I think it was 97 or 98. And then they did that angle, and when Jarrett was more or less out of the NWA group, they presented the belt to Barry Windham. Again, he didn't really win that title, they just more or less put the belt on him. And then when the Invasion angle was dropped, the title just kind of hung around, and they didn't have a new champion to crown. With Music City ended up unifying their North American Championship with the NWA North American Championship, and gained it some credibility instantly with Mike Rapata and Recon battling for that North American title. And it really kind of helped shape that North American Championship for down the road, being the number one contender for the World's Heavyweight Championship when Mike Rapata would eventually become NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, associated with the success he had with the North American Championship. And again, I mean, even up until, even tomorrow night, Bert Prentice's USA Championship Wrestling, it's still going on. They're doing a show Friday night, Saturday night. They have big cards for the rest of the summer, into September, into the fall. So, I mean, the show doesn't stop for anyone, and I think that's how Bert would have wanted it. And so his legacy will continue to thrive in that in Tennessee, in that area. And again, just his connection to the NWA was short-lived, but impactful. And NWA Wildside was so big for the NWA in those lean years, in those wilderness years, that had that promotion not come to fruition, we might not even be talking about the NWA today. Every little step on that ladder brought us to this point. So I would be remiss if we didn't bring up the contributions that Bert Prentice brought to the NWA, and of course by way of Bill Behrens. So yeah, we want to give love and respect to those three men and their families and their legions of fans all across the world. And yeah,
Christopher Love was the name of one of his alter egos.
Yeah.
For those, the thing about Bert Prentice, if I can step in here for just a second,
absolutely,
is that he was a true promoter.
A real promoter.
A promoter. I don't know how he was on booking. I don't know how he was on anything else. But he was a promoter. If you gave half the promoters in the NWA at that time a show and a step card, and you said, here, promote this show, sell tickets, you would have had 50 tickets sold. If you told Bert to go do it, you would have had sold out event. He was a promoter. He went out. He knew how to talk. He knew how to network. He was, he was a businessman.
So did Bert have any, sorry to interrupt, but did he have any NWA territories? Like, what was his, did he ever have any NWA territories?
Well, Music City was his. He and Bill Behrens kind of ran that together. Bill was the television guy, and Bert was the promoter, and they were both working for USWA prior to Music City Wrestling. And Music City Wrestling was kind of a big stronghold for the NWA, like in '99, early 2000. You got to remember, there was only a handful of promotions associated with the NWA at that point.
Behrens was the promoter of record, but Bert may have been he was at least half owner of the promotion. He may have owned it completely. I don't know 100% that business deal. And like I was saying, he was the true promoter. And the person who will sing that the most to you is Bill Behrens. He'll tell you that Bert Prentice was the one who could go out and talk, and it was interesting. Christopher Love, of course, was a manager and a very flamboyant gay character, and that wasn't too far from the thing. Bert was gay, and he wasn't that flamboyant in real life, but he did have that networking ability. And he's another one who can't really find people who will talk badly about him. Not credible people, at least. he was a good guy.
You either loved Bert Prentice or you hated him, because I have heard people say some pretty gnarly things about him. But at the same time, I mean that's life too, right? 50%.
Well, that's why I kind of threw in some of the credible. Most of the people that had problems with him, I think, were probably on the wrong end of the problem.
Maybe.
If I can be honest. I have heard things, but it's just, hey, look, here's something a lot of people don't know. No Bert Prentice, no TNA, because they would have died.
Yeah. We didn't even get to that, yeah.
And that has to do with the deal at the Nashville Fairgrounds, stuff like that. But he once said the best deal and the worst deal he ever made. Because he was running shows there, and he had the exclusive rights to it, and so he let TNA run there. He goes, so TNA was bringing in all these, top name people for free because they weren't charging for admission. He goes, and then he was trying to run a show there with local guys, and he had to charge. He couldn't do it for free. He goes, right. And who wanted to come pay $10 to see his people? when they go see TNA for free? But yeah, there was a lot going on at that time, and there were some other behind the scenes things going on that, like I said, Bert hadn't been around, hadn't been who he was. TNA would have died a horrible death.
I think he was responsible for bringing Chris Harris to Impact, who would later team with James Storm as the America's Most Wanted. I know that he brought Shannon Moore out to that territory in Nashville, and like I said, he was a big supporter of Mike Rapata and really helped establish him as a top contender for the 10 pounds of gold, and I'm sure it had something to do with getting the 10 pounds of gold around his waist. But let's move on to more NWA news and information, because that's why you're here. We're here to talk NWA with the hashtag NWA fam. And real quick, let's go through some of your guys' comments, because we want to include you guys here on the show. You're a vital, important part of the show, and we love talking to you guys. So the first one I see is Dave Scooby said the Alabama Jam looked like it killed every time he hit it. 100%. That Alabama Jam was like just such a fun finisher, going off the second rope. I know briefly
as long as you weren't taking it.
Well, sure, I was watching it at home. I I know WCW outlawed the moves off of the top rope for a while, so I think he suspended doing the move or modified it to the second rope. But it was still just always a fun move to see.
Not just having a horrible move to actually give, too, because leg drops off the top rope leave a lifetime of a scar.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, it probably, I doubt the opponent felt anything.
Well, and then you think about our recently passed Bobby Eaton, and he was such a professional that I'm sure he did his best to make sure that, he probably never hurt anybody.
Listen to Al Snow's story about Bruiser Brody. And, you learn how professional will do stuff. But, Al Snow basically had a story where Bruiser Brody there were all these stories that Bruiser Brody's knee drop, how like crushing people's chest or whatever. And he talks about how he had to take it, and he goes, he never felt a thing. He never knew what happened. He goes, he had closed his eyes in fear. And Brody had bloodied his tag team. It was a handicap match. And Brody had bloodied his tag team partner. And, but, that's what makes you a professional wrestler. That's how you're professional.
Right.
Is that you can do a move like that and you don't feel anything. We had another, I'm sorry, I'm hijacking here for a second. Sorry, people.
Hijack away, brother.
There was another story not long ago when a certain perv had made a comment about a clip of a Big Man Vader match where Vader was just pummeling this guy in the corner. And the certain perv had made the comment, he goes, at least we don't have to put up with bullying like that anymore.
No, jeez.
And the jobber who was in the match commented, he said, oh man, working with Leon White was great. He goes, never hurt me, never anything. He goes, again, a professional. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to make it look real. Working. He could work, make it look real. And so,
Who's going to tell Van Vader to stop stiffing him?
What'd you say?
I said, who's going to tell Van Vader to stop stiffing him?
Well, and that was the thing. He didn't have to. Vader was dead by the time this all came out. So, I mean, the jobber that was talking about it, he had nothing to gain.
Right.
So he was just saying, Leon White was a great guy. He knew how to work. And he said, he goes, there were others he worked with that worked, Road Warriors could potato you. Jobbers used to leave if they saw their names up with being in a match with the Road Warriors.
I saw Sid Vicious just tear someone apart once, and it was like, man, it was almost uncomfortable to watch. Just watching him eat this guy's lunch, it was rough. Let's get to some more of the comments. Michael Manning said, after watching WWF for years, finding WCW on TV in the UK and then taping it late at night, it was so exciting to see a different promotion, which appeared more real to me. I mean, that's a great point. Guys like Beautiful Bobby, I mean, he just looked like a consummate professional as far as I'm concerned. Chris Drummond mentioned that Jody Hamilton, the Assassin, did own Deep South Wrestling, but I think you mentioned that too, DK. And then Chris Drummond says that he loved that North American title, a.k.a. the Baron's Belt. I never heard it referred to as the Baron's Belt. I've got a soft spot for that title. I remember when the Tharp era were selling off the old titles, I desperately wanted to try to get that North American Championship, but it was not in the cards.
And that was the first one sold.
Yeah, I heard it was. I mean, that title, to me, that title had so much significance because being on WWE TV, and of course, it going back to Music City Wrestling and all that other fun stuff. So, that was such a pretty belt. I like that belt a lot. And then Dodie points out that he knows that I love Mike Rapata, and I used to hate that guy, and for no reason more than I just didn't think he should have been world champion. But my views have changed as I've gotten older, and the way that I look at it is every person who's held the 10 pounds of gold has literally paved the way for the guy in front of, after him, behind him. So, like, we don't get to Adam Pearce if there's not a Mike Rapata and a Steve Corino and a Shinya Hashimoto. And, we don't get to that next step. We don't get to Lightning One era, Nick Aldis. We don't get there if it's not off the backs of Jax Dane and Rob Conway and Satoshi Kojima, Hiroshi Tenzin, the Tokyo Monster Kahagas. Every single champion laid the foundation for the next guy. And I've always said that, when people used to criticize the NWA saying, oh, it's dead, they just don't know it yet, my response was always that as long as that title is being defended and people are paying to watch that belt, that champion, then you can't say it's dead. And again, every single person that I've mentioned and hundreds more who've carried that NWA brand since, 1948, each one of them get credit for paving that way for the guy behind them. And we don't get to today if it hadn't been for every single one of them. So as much as I used to say...
hey, in terms of Mike Rapata, somebody has to be the worst NWA champion of all time.
I mean, so I like
somebody has to be at the bottom of the list.
Well, so I'm a huge Chris Candido guy, right? I love Chris Candido, but you can't really say that he had much of a reign with the 10 pounds of gold. Like, he had 3 defenses. If you compare Mike Rapata and Chris Candido, Mike Rapata had a much better career with that title. He actually had a real feud and changed hands. That title changed hands between him and Sabu. So, I mean, you can make the case that maybe Chris Candido was the worst champion. Maybe make the case that Shane Douglas was. I mean, he's still officially recognized as world champion. So we could get on and on, but we'll keep moving forward.
Well, I do want to say one thing on that issue. And this is one of those things where I want people to really think. Rapata, I understand the criticisms with Rapata, but I always thought he was the right choice.
Yeah.
At that time.
Probably given the competitive, who's up against him.
Would you prefer Jerry Flynn?
No, you're right. You're right on that.
He'd been wrestling for several promotions there in the South. He was a draw there in the South.
I did some shows with Mike Rapata.
Did you really?
Yeah, he worked in NWA Southwest.
How was he to work with?
No, I didn't wrestle him. I just was on some of the shows he was on. Same shows.
But
anyway, he was overrated even then.
My point was that he was a guy that needed to work, or he was a guy that had worked a lot in the NWA, had done some stuff, had helped them. And if you're not going to put the title on someone like that, then why would you do that for the NWA?
Right. No, I think he was the right choice at the right time. But it just kind of says a little bit about the amount of talent that they had on the roster.
Well, I mean,
also maybe have a little bit of a saltiness spot about it because, my best friend Rodney Mack was also someone that wanted to be in the conversation for NWA North American and world champion at the time, and even had a feud with Dan Severn. And God, I don't know if you guys ever saw that match, but good Lord. But I just say, there were some. I may be a little partial, and it may just because of the era that I have that taste in my mouth about it. It has nothing to do with Rapata personally at all. It's nothing to do with him. He's a great guy. It's there's nothing about that. It's just, I thought there were more talented people that could have been holding that belt that were friends of mine.
So before we get to the rest of the NWA news we want to get to, because we've been on Mike Rapata so much, he won that title at NWA Florida's Tango in Tampa 2000. Match happened September 19th, 2000. And here are the names of the folks that were in the tournament besides Rapata: Jerry Flynn, Fidel Sierra, who I think that was the Cuban assassin, right? Hector Guerrero, Kendall Windham, Stone Mountain, Greg the Hammer Valentine and Joe Malenko. So
like a geriatric tournament.
Yeah, I mean, look, they could have certainly found younger, but I mean, that was the same event that had Adam Windsor, the NWA Florida champion, versus Dory Funk Jr. And also had who else was on here? Lex Lovett, Vito DiNucci, Chris Nelson, Cyborg. So I mean, there was some young blood on that show, but obviously not in that tournament.
Don't get us started on Adam Windsor.
Yeah, he was supposed to be the chosen one. So okay, let's go. Your face says it all, DK. Let's get to some more news and information. Last night, a new number one contender was crowned at AEW's Dynamite. If you guys are watching Dynamite, that's great. I'm glad you are. I don't particularly watch it. I'm sticking to my NWA and my Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. But last night, Layla Hirsch defeated the Bunny, Allie, to become the number one contender. And what we saw after the post-match kind of made me scratch my head, because Camille was ringside. The Women's World Champion was ringside. And if you guys have ever seen Camille, she's a legit 5'10". Last night she was wearing heels, which made her effectively 7 foot tall when she stepped in the ring against legit Layla Hirsch, who's literally like 4'2". It was the weirdest thing.
That she was 7 foot.
Yeah, well, I'm being facetious, obviously, but it just was the weirdest image I've seen in a wrestling ring with women in a long time. And I'm not trying to make fun of Layla Hirsch, but she legitimately looked like a little person next to Camille, who, like I said, is a legit 5'10" and had heels on. So, what did you guys think about that? Are you excited about that match? I polled the audience and asked them if they're excited about that match. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Well, bad wrestling fan that I am, I didn't know. This is news to me now. But you remember, I called it with Camille like a while back. I mean, I've been on the bandwagon. I've been critical when it needed to win time, when it was time to be critical. I'm not just giving her a free pass. But I mean, from day one, I've said she's big league talent. She's TV material, and all she's got to do is just continue down the path that she's on and continue to improve. And the sky is the limit with her. So I think AEW, I think a lot of the show, I've gotten to watch a few episodes over the last few weeks and been really impressed with how much the show has grown over the last few months, especially because the first time I watched it, I really didn't like it. But now I can really get into the show. I really like what they're starting to do with it. I think it's huge for Camille. I think it's huge for the NWA. I think it's a great move for all parties involved. Again, it kind of puts AEW in a uncharted territory in terms of just their willingness to work with other companies and not have that kind of beef situation that you typically have in that scenario. Obviously, WWE would be the idea. It'd be great to see all of them work together, like they did when we were all kind of growing up. A lot of back in the day, I mean, we did get to see a lot of the best talent wrestle each other before WWE kind of came along. And so, it doesn't surprise me that Camille made a fuss. And when I say that, I mean made that's making news to me. When your champion goes on TV for a major wrestling promotion and dwarfs her next challenger, all I can say is it better be a 3-minute match, because if that's the image you're getting on TV, then the Hirsch girl doesn't even stand a chance. It shouldn't stand a chance if we're trying to make wrestling believable.
DK, I know you have some thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think you more or less nailed them. Just had a conversation earlier with Jaden, who was talking about how, Layla's supposedly a legit badass and could, has a lot of combat training, stuff like that. Maybe she could, maybe she couldn't kick Camille's ass. Camille's also done some MMA training and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't care. It's not an MMA, but And so image matters, size matters, things matter. And it does, I mean, hers is short. I mean, by any standard. When you look at the pictures, her head barely makes it to the top row. I mean, you know, and I know there's humor in it, but I'm not saying it to be humorous. It's legit. That I said to be humorous. Now,
unintended.
Yes, and here's my thing. I'm not as big of a fan of working together as other people are. Like, I've made the comment on Discord, you know, a lot of people go, oh, isn't it great? Look what happened. You know, IWGP US Championship was defended in the main event on AEW, and it even changed hands. Well, yeah, both guys are under contracts to both companies. And the truth is, at this moment, I would never see her as being a serious contender at this time for the AEW title. And there was a thing a little while back where, like, all these people, somebody, I shouldn't say all these people, but somebody got the idea of, oh, they need to put the NWA title on Dustin Rhodes. At his 55 years of age, or however old he is. And it's like, that's a terrible idea. No, it's a great idea. He'll be a great champion. He can outwork everybody that's in, you know, whatever. I go, well, then put the AEW world title on.
Right.
I don't hear any of you saying Dustin needs to be the AEW world champion. If he doesn't need to be the AEW world champion, then he doesn't need to be the NWA world champion.
I do want to make a point for legit Layla. I do want to give her some credit because, I mean, she's got a couple of wins, you know, back to back to back in AEW. In fact, she's only got three losses all year, and her losses were to Nyla Rose, who's the former AEW Women's Champion, to Thunder Rosa, who's the former NWA Women's Champion, and to Rio, who's, I'm not going to pronounce that correctly. We'll just say Rio. So it's not like she hasn't had some key victories in AEW, but you're right.
Well, you told us who she lost to, who she beat.
Give me a second and I'll get that for you.
Because you know, it's like they'll do this thing on AEW where they'll go, they have 15 victories and they've won 10 straight matches. And you go and look and you find out that, you know, all but 2 of them are on AEW Dark against the same people that lose every week on AEW Dark.
So she defeated Dynamante. She's defeated her twice. I'm not very good with these names. Natalia Markova, Vert Vixen, Robin Renegade, Kelsey Heather, Renee Michelle, Shauna Viperous, Masha Slamovich, Sarah Evans, Miranda Elise, and Brooke Havoc, and Catalina Perez.
I think that says it all.
I don't even know who any of those people are.
You don't know who...
There you go. So the people that everyone knows she's lost to, and the people nobody knows, and they don't follow AEW, and more specifically like AEW Dark and Dark Elevation and whatever, you know, she's won. So, all right. And she doesn't, you know, look, I'm not saying they can't have a good match. I'm just saying that I'm in no way, shape, or form, you know, thinking, oh, I can't wait to see it.
I kind of hope they do what Kevin suggested and have her roll right through, you know, almost a squash, because I feel like that would be more empowering for the NWA and its Women's World Champion to show up at the 73rd against whomever she faces, having steamrolled an AEW competitor. I think that would be great.
I agree. I agree. To have a 4'11" girl. Sorry, DK, but I started first. But have a 4 foot tall girl beating up Camille in any capacity. It's not just bad for the NWA, but it's also bad for business.
You know,
we have a timeout, guys. We got family business.
Hi. I'm Claire.
They know who you are.
Hi, Claire.
I'm Kevin.
And this year I'm going to be in 3rd grade.
Hey!
Awesome.
Congratulations, Claire.
And I get to see my friend.
Nice!
Yeah, you actually going to school? You get to go to school?
Today was first day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome!
And today we watched a movie. Well, some of it.
What movie?
The movie that we watched, so it was the Mitchells versus the Machines.
Oh, we watched that on Netflix.
It's a great movie.
All right, say bye to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I love
Beat
that
you
little
to
girl.
kiss.
Yeah.
And Jimmy agrees with me, by the way.
Well,
Go, Jimmy.
Jimmy gets it right every once in a while. So I mean, again, we don't know exactly how this is all gonna come out, right? We're getting little bits of information of how this show is going to go for the women's Empowered pay-per-view. We know that Deonna Purrazzo, it was just announced on Access TV. Deonna Purrazzo, the Knockouts champion, I think she's defending against Melina. At the very least, they will have a match. Our NWA Melina versus Impact's Deonna Purrazzo. We also know that there will be a 10-woman battle royal to determine the invitational champion who will face Camille or whomever the world champion is at the 73rd. And we know a couple of the contestants then that are going to be in that battle royal. We know it's going to be, that was announced just today, Chelsea Green, who's currently working with Impact.
Hey!
Time out.
Yeah.
They're doing a battle royal to determine who's going to face Camille?
That's what I saw today. It was on Mickey James tweeted it. They were calling it this entire time. They was calling it a gauntlet, but now they're calling it an invitational battle royal.
Oh, so she's not wrestling the AEW girl at EmPOWERRR.
No. She Camille will be wrestling Layla Hirsch in the Women's World Championship match at EmPOWERRR, and then the winner of the invitational battle royal will face Camille the very next night at the 73rd anniversary show.
It might be her.
So wait, did you say Chelsea Green's going to be there?
Chelsea Green has committed to it, and
that's a huge talent upgrade.
Time out.
Go ahead, DK.
I thought this was supposed to be a young person invitational tournament to see who was going to face Camille at 73.
I mean, what they said was that they never really mentioned it was a young person thing. They said it was trying to establish some lesser known names, and I guess Chelsea Green being in NXT and
time out. Chelsea Green, Lauren Van Hess, former TNA or Impact or whatever world champion, broken wrist girl from SmackDown, top talent on NXT. This is our person that needs exposure, to rise to the top, lesser known thing.
You want me to tell y'all what happened, just so you know?
I bet I can guess, but yes, Kevin, tell me what happened.
So what happened is they they didn't have anybody for the battle royal initially, so they came up with this verbiage to kind of justify putting whatever they're going to put out there. And then all of a sudden, they found a way to get a few names to throw in there, and they're going to just ignore that they ever said that in the first place. And that's Pro Wrestling 101 right there. DK, was I close?
Yeah, I mean, more or less. Look, if you've watched the last few episodes, you'll know that I've basically said that because the NWA gets a lot of criticism for not knowing or not promoting what their cards are for these pay-per-views until the very end, and what I've been stating from the beginning is because they don't know themselves. I really don't think these cards come together very well until the very end. I think they have a vague concept when they do TV, but they don't really put them together. Kikuchi, Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, I don't think he's here tonight, but when he was on one week,
here.
he goes, is he? Okay, I haven't seen him yet. Ah, my screen went dark. He said that, he said, some people, they actually make plans, so that they already have the card figured out, the next card figured out when this one takes place so that they can make plans and have TV and do things to build up properly. So,
yeah. So getting back to the EmPOWERRR pay-per-view, and again, somebody, Dodie said, I wish they were listing the card for this. What we know now, and I'm sure things are fluid, I'm sure things will change, but there's been 3 names announced for the Women's Invitational Battle Royal. Again, Chelsea Green, Tootie Lynn, and what was her name? Jamie Senegal. So we still have a couple of names in that Battle Royal. There's still 7 more names to be announced.
Jamie Senegal's in it too?
Yeah.
She's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a good name.
They're
again, I just think like they're throwing it together the best they can, because look, and sorry to just kind of what did you call it, DK, when you just jump in? But no, I think really, and I'll give them, honestly, I'll give them a little leeway on this because of the reality of who they are in the business right now. They're not top tier, so for them, they have to be a little flexible, because if they can get some big names into these shows last minute, they have to do it. And I just think that that's why I give them a little leeway on this, because they kind of have to do it this way, because a lot of the best wrestlers out there are under contract with somebody, and you got to take what you can get in their situation, because they have their main roster of people, but we all know that main roster is not star-studded.
And in the thing,
hey Kevin,
go ahead.
Right? Yes.
Hey Kevin. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
Like one of the people who's been mentioned over Twitter and some things, not by the NWA, but just by some fans, somebody like Miranda Gordy.
Okay.
Been around a couple of years, has about 130, 40 matches under her belt. Still somewhat green. Has the name of being Terry Gordy's daughter. So, like, in your mind, is that somebody you would want, even though she's not necessarily a big name, but she's connected to one?
I mean, I think right now with the NWA, it's not like the talent they are putting out there is just, oh my God. I mean, granted, at the top end, they do have some really good talent at the top end, but it's kind of like the haves and have-nots. I mean, there's a huge gap between the top tier talent and the mid to lower tier talent. So I just think that having somebody like somebody, I mean, they got Colby Carino out there for that same reason, and he's trash. So, I mean, what could Miranda Gordy hurt? First of all, she's a really nice person. She got the Gordy family, I happen to know them, and they're just incredible people. I mean, they'll treat you like family, and they don't even know you. And, you know, I had no idea when I met Miranda that she would end up becoming a professional wrestler. None of them showed any interest in it whatsoever. But to me, if you're gonna throw Colby Carino out there, and let that trash go out there and wrestle and make your show look like that, what can Miranda Gordy, putting a Gordy on there, putting her name out there, especially, again, not to trash the women's division at all, because I actually really like the women's division in the NWA right now, but I don't think she would take anything away. I definitely think she would add something to the roster.
And then just as we're going through this too, you know, the women's roster, we know the faces we know that will be on this pay-per-view because they're listed on the poster. I can only imagine they'll be there, but you still have Kylie Ray, who's supposed to be there. You still have Genocide, who's supposed to be there. We know that Kenzie Paige and Lady Frost will be there in some capacity. So, I mean, this card's starting to shape up. Now, I think maybe part of the reason why we're getting an announcement like Chelsea Green is because NWA 73rd had just sold out. Like, literally, like, I think it was yesterday. 800 tickets sold out for the pay-per-view. That's huge. That's a great big number for the NWA. And then
that's a great big number for anybody who's not WWE or AEW.
Yeah. No, please don't get me wrong. I mean, that's like a full capacity at the Chase. So I think that's a great victory for the NWA. And not one single match has been announced yet, other than we know that the women's champion at the end of EmPOWERRR will face the winner of the Invitational. That's the only match that's been signed for the 73rd. But the women's
official.
Yeah, official. But the women's pay-per-view still hasn't, they still have I think about 130 tickets left, which in and of itself is a great number. Don't get me wrong. They still, I think they sold 600 something tickets already. So that's pretty good considering, again, there's not all these official matches that have been announced. But I think they have to start releasing some of these names to garner a little bit more interest, right? So that more people will buy that. The pay-per-view numbers are going to be different than obviously the live attendance, but you want that live gate there. You need that audience there. I mean, wrestling is back, and they need a live fan base there, and they need to be loud and rowdy. But ultimately, if they're going to be spending names on Deonna Purrazzo, Chelsea Green, they need to have a reason to do that. So I really think this is we're going to see here.
Putting Chelsea Green on that show is going to sell that thing out. I'm just telling you right now.
Okay.
And she's a great talent, and she's a draw. I mean, I don't understand why WWE.
Oh, I'd go for Chelsea Green.
Right. I mean, she's awesome. I mean,
I don't have anything against her being on the show. It was just, the way they have been advertising things versus what they're if you told me at the beginning, hey, first round draft, Chelsea Green's going to be there. Oh hell, I bought the pay-per-view bundle. I'll fly out to St. Louis or whatever. Hey, I want to talk a little bit just about, we're talking about them selling out the pay-per-view. For those of you that don't know, they're doing 4 straight shows there, back-to-back, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And they've sold out the pay-per-view. Looks like they're down to about, like Jay said, 130, 150 tickets on EmPOWERRR, which at one point actually had the most open seats. The Monday night show, it looks like it's down to around just over 100 tickets, and the Tuesday night show kind of just a few more. So if we're assuming 800 tickets for every show, then we're, somebody do the math. That's 800, 700 about right now. Pretty close. Maybe drop another 50 somewhere to even it out. I don't know an indie show. I don't know ROH show. I don't know an MLW show. I don't know a New Japan America show. I don't know an Impact show. I don't know any other wrestling promotion that wouldn't love to say, we've sold a couple of thousand ticket worth. I have my calculator up. Over 4 days for a show. Can you think of anybody?
That's a big thing, and actually, to me, I really think that pay-per-view buy rates are really important because that's how they're making money. But I really believe that your ability to pull fans out to a live arena, really, to me, tells me how good the health of your wrestling promotion. So if they're doing what you're saying that they're doing, that's amazing. That's great. And I'm telling you right now,
those tickets aren't cheap either.
Well, and let me tell you this, DK and Jay, the amount of the revenue and the clout, I guess you would say, that they're going to get from having these 4 shows and them being a huge success, you're going to see an upgrade in talent almost immediately. So that excites me. And again, I know that in the past that I don't pull punches when it comes to being critical of the company. But I also will say when something's good too. So it's not like I'm just all trashing everything. I just am honest. And honestly, this sounds like a turning point for the NWA, and they really have a chance to capitalize here on some momentum, because right now the momentum is going to be what they can really capitalize on if they do this the right way. So, when they first announced these 2 shows, I was skeptical, but as things are starting to come together, and honestly on the back of a pretty strong show for them this week on the championship series, which is I'm really starting to warm up to it, to be honest, because I'm sure to DK's liking, it's causing more wrestling to happen in the show and way less fluff. I mean, there was no fluff in this most recent show. At all.
Let's hit a little bit more news, and then we'll get to the comments, and then we'll jump into the show.
I do have one quick thing. If you add up all those numbers that I said, they are sitting somewhere around 2,850 tickets sold over 4 days. General admission prices are $30 each. So, again, this isn't a $10 ticket to the movie or whatever. We talked opportunity cost once before, and I'm sure the ringside were pricier than that. So, let's make it pretty clear here. They've done an excellent job. The community has gotten behind them, which is the most important thing. They've been on news shows. They've been on local shows. I think they've had billboards, someone told me. And they are, I don't know, it's 100% true, somebody told me. And they have done an excellent job with them. 100% props to who's ever been involved. Who's there? Billy Corgan, you get all the blame. You're going to get all the credit here too.
Absolutely.
And your staff. So,
and
excellent job. Excellent job. Very impressed. Very proud. Glad I'm an NWA fan. Just on that alone there.
And then to add on top of that, we haven't talked about the actual financials, but we're saying that 2,000 plus tickets at $30 a pop is a huge victory. And we're not talking about the the higher price tickets. We're just talking about general admission. But on top of that, it was announced earlier today that Busch Light will become the official beer of wrestling at the Chase. So the NWA is getting a sponsorship deal with the local beer company. And I mean, I don't know what those numbers are in particular, but if they're getting an endorsement type deal from a semi-national company, I think that's a great deal too. Busch Light, it's not my beer of choice, but $20 is $20, and I think that's a great news for the NWA that there's someone out there commercially who's looking to invest in the brand. So not only are the fans of St. Louis invested, and the fans who are coming from outside of St. Louis who are heading into that city, but now you've got corporations who are invested in it. This Wrestling from the Chase, Billy Corgan said that this is something he'd like to do on a more regular basis, and we've DKM and I have speculated that maybe they could do a regular television show from that area, or more specials from that area. But I really think that's starting to become more of a reality, and it's based on the fan support. So that hashtag NWA fam, you guys here in the chat that are either going to the show or are going to order the pay-per-view, I mean, tip of a cap to you, because you're helping drive all this. And then the last bit of news I have for tonight is that we are going to have a bonus episode of NWA Power. Our world's heavyweight champion has now gifted us an additional episode of Power, which I really think that means that they shot so much additional content that they had enough to release another episode, which I think is a smart move. I think it's a smart play, getting those YouTube fans excited, because they're not charging for this episode. It's going to be free, available on YouTube at NWA, youtube.com/the NWA. Maybe I would have held back on this a little bit till closer to the pay-per-view, but I think this is another victory for the fans who maybe have been waiting behind the pay window for an opportunity to get some more of that NWA content, and maybe they can squeeze a few more pay-per-view buys out of just releasing this kind of a show on YouTube. Thoughts?
Smart
Great
move.
publicity, son. Yeah, I think it's a great publicity move, and anytime you give away a little bit of, as long as they're not giving away what I'm paying for, I'm good with it. Meaning, don't put one of the shows that I'm paying $5 a month for on YouTube. But that bothered me a little bit. But hey, you can put stuff out there. Please put stuff out there that's going to really help grow the brand, because I think we all want the same thing. I think we want to see them be successful, because it's just going to create a better show. And that's what we want. I mean, we're on here because we love the NWA, so we want to see it grow, and I think that's awesome. I mean, they really revamped, or revived the company using YouTube, and I like to see them, still utilizing that tool as much as they can.
So let's go to the comment section. I'm seeing a lot of great comments, and I think we should recognize some of these that we're getting over here, if I can get my mouse to work. Valerie's here in the house. Welcome, Valerie. Everyone's excited that you're here. Let's see. Willie Bone was throwing out some fantasy booking. He would like to see that Jessica Havoc, Rosemary, and Jordan Grace would be at this card, but I don't think that's going to happen, but, it could. Chris Drummond says that it's weird that there's no mention of Thunder Rosa on EmPOWERRR. To that, I'm going to say, I don't think you're going to get Thunder Rosa at EmPOWERRR. I think she's done. I think she's done with her commitments to the National Wrestling Alliance. She signed an exclusive deal with AEW, and you might not ever see Thunder Rosa in an NWA ring again. Now, saying that, she might be on the next person on the card, but until they formally announce it, I'm going to just assume that she's done. Like, done. Terry McDermott said that Miranda is a very nice person. Miranda Gordy. Let's see. What would Luthez do? Says that St. Louis. He said that St. Louis would do the NWA proud, and they certainly have. They rose to the occasion. He also said that they are far from starving from wrestling, so that means that they're just looking for the NWA, which I think is great. Let's see. Wrestling with MMA said 22,000 is a great number, and that shows that people want to see wrestling. And Dodie says, will the beer be priced at 8 cents when you buy it at the Chase? I think that's going back to the olden days of the Chase and how much they would charge for beer. Dodie says the additional content, he wish it would contain more wrestlers who are still underutilized, like Jordan Clearwater or El Rudo. Kind of like the matches we see on Power Surge, and I'm okay with that. And the last thing is Wrestling with MMA says, the one and only time I have liked something Aldis has done, by giving us a free episode of Power. So those are the comments. That's the news. Thank you guys for checking that out. Now let's talk. Let's talk about what's going on the Champion Series. I think this has been a breath of fresh air. I've enjoyed this so much. I think this is my only problem with this, and DK and I talked about this last week, is I kind of wish they would have done this Champion Series before before the rest of the season. I think they should have flipped it, and the matches that we've had up until this point should have been on after, so that we could have had that Champion Series without any need to build up anything else but the Champion Series. We have. You guys mind if I just get into it?
Get in? Yeah.
We got like 7 minutes, so sure.
Well, I think we're going to go a little bit later if you guys are willing and able to. The first match we get was Lady Frost representing Team Aaron and Taran taking on Team Camille and Idol and Kenzie Paige. Now, this was a match where Lady Frost is 0-2. Kenzie Paige in the NWA is 0-1. Of course, she recently challenged Camille for the Women's World Championship unsuccessfully, but that wasn't in the NWA ring. Kenzie unsuccessfully, I just said that. Neither woman have had a lot of success in the ring, but Frost is super, super skilled and very, he's utilizing, she's underutilized as far as I'm concerned in the NWA. I think she would be great, given more opportunity. She looks good, she's athletic, she has a lot of potential in the ring. Kenzie was able to steal a victory when Lady Frost was a little bit arrogant and cost her team some points. Kevin, what were your thoughts on that match?
What did Lady Frost do to deserve being 0-3? I feel like Lady Frost is up in the upper echelon of the talent that they've got. I mean, what is there to be desired in her that she doesn't have? I mean, she's in great shape. She's not terribly undersized. She can wrestle really well. She's one of the most technically sound wrestlers they have, man or woman, because her ring positioning is really good. She works the camera constantly.
Ton of personality.
Make sense. Right. I mean, her matches make sense. 0-3, I mean, she really should be one of those people that they're considering. And again, it's going to be hard to have anybody that looks right in the ring with Camille besides Genocide. But again, she's one of those people that should be moving up the ladder pretty quickly, because I think a real match between her and somebody like Kylie Ray would be outstanding. I feel like she's separated herself from the pack in terms of the newer talent that have come on in terms of women's wrestlers. And so, I know they're really high on Sky Blue, and I think Sky Blue is great. I think she's good, but I think Lady Frost is the best new one they've brought in a while. And so to see her lose that match, the match was really good. The match was the best match of the night to me. It had everything but the finish that I liked. And I just didn't like it because it seemed so predictable. And if you're gonna have her pull her up and do all that stuff, the next move shouldn't be the upset, because that's just too telegraphed. And so, all in all, though, I felt like Lady Frost should have got the win. Obviously, I mean, that was kind of the story they told. But again, I'm talking about booking wise. I don't think that was booked right in terms that Lady Frost needs some momentum, because she's one of the best things they've got going, and maybe they know that. Maybe she's in contract talks with another company, and that's why they're not really pushing her too hard. But I really like this match. I think this was the best match of the show.
How about you, DK?
DK.
I probably wouldn't go that far, but I will say that Lady Frost has consistently looked like a professional wrestler.
For sure, yeah.
And she's now, I didn't know anything about her. I actually thought she was newer into the sport than she is. But she's obviously, her moves are very smooth. Again, she's very professional wrestler oriented in look, and her, like Kevin said, ring awareness, camera awareness, very, very experienced, or comes across very experienced that way. And yeah, I mean, to me, this would be somebody you would want to kind of push. That, especially if you're looking at bringing in like tag titles or secondary women's title or something like that, I would certainly think you'd want her to be in the mix. So I'm not 100% sure why, like Kevin said, they are kind of dropping her out at the moment, unless they had no plans to keep her. Which, if that was their original idea, they need to turn around Jane.
Yeah.
And, get her going. And she is somebody who would benefit from a second show, if the NWA was going to do a second show. And again, not knowing anything behind the scenes, not knowing any of the business stuff, somebody had mentioned, if they put on power search type episodes or that style of wrestling, you could do a 30-minute YouTube show, do 2 matches, and you can use that to get over some of these people like Lady Frost.
Yeah.
And I would, I don't know what the plans are, but I would hope they plan on using her in a better way. So, I mean, I was more impressed by her than I was by her opponent in the match.
By far. I mean, completely outclassed. I'm going to call her the other girl, because I don't even remember her name. But this is the third, I think, match I've seen with Lady Frost, and she's been good every time. She was the one that got rolled up by Taran, right?
Yes.
Yeah, wrong wrestler to do that with. That wasn't they shouldn't have used her for that. What belt you holding there, DK? What you got going on? Oh, look at that. That's my roots right there.
My latest acquisition, so
that's my roots right there, man.
Yeah, figured you'd like it.
Of course.
All right. What was the next match, Jay?
So the next match.
Hey, what did you think? What did you think, Jay? Did you even tell us what you thought?
Well, I mean, you guys kind of said it for me. I think Lady Frost is the most underutilized person on the talent, maybe next to Jax Dane. I think she's incredible. She's got the look. She's got the abilities. Like you said, every match she's had, she's looked great. And she's got a character. She's got a persona. It's not just a woman wrestler. It's a character, which I think is huge and very marketable. And if the NWA would get behind her, I think they can make a lot of money with her. On Twitter today, Lindsay Snow, the American Kaiju, who we haven't seen since Circled Squared, she put her over. And they even teased maybe when Lindsay Snow is healthy that they would go after the NWA World Tag Team, Women's Tag Team titles, which is very, very compelling to me because both of those women are so solid in the ring. But that's just how it is. So, but I do believe she's a great talent. Somebody's microphone.
Hey, that's me. Hold on.
Okay.
How do did we just run the whole show?
Kinda, but we'll do this. We'll transition to just Kevin, and then we'll do. Oh wait! I can do this. It just says DKM, but everyone know that that's Kevin. So I thought that there was a good match, and I really feel like they're underutilizing her. Hopefully, as the next season we get a little bit more. So next up is Team Aldous and Melina versus Team Pope Sky, which is Crimson versus the Mystery Man. And
look who's back. Look who's back.
And now the names are all switched up, so you guys know who's who, but unfortunately the names are switched.
For those of you that are new, I'm the modern day hero DKM.
And that's the former junior heavyweight champion.
Got the belt or something.
Wait, looks like me and DK are in the same slide right now. We're oh darn, never mind. That was fun for 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's some of the things that I can't control, and unfortunately, with what we have, that's how it is. But when it comes to the next match, again, it was Aldous Molina's Crimson versus Pope Sky's Mystery Man, and this I really enjoyed this match. However, I was very put off by the way it started. You know, we've talked about production flubs. We've talked about things that could be fixed in post. Tim Storm and Joe Galli were grilling Melina about why she chose the Mystery Man for a good solid 45 seconds to a minute. And I know that doesn't sound like a long time, but the cringe was so unbearable for me. If this would have been a TV show on regular TV, I would have muted it. I would have turned it off. Melina did her best to try to, you know, play into what they were saying, but even she knew that something was off. And it was just really, really unfortunate because you had this.
What happened? Tell me again. I'm kind of lost.
So maybe you didn't hear it, but the first 45 seconds of the match, Joe Galli and Tim Storm were asking Melina why she chose the Mystery Man.
Okay.
The Mystery Man she didn't choose the Mystery Man. The Mystery Man was on the opposite team. The Mystery Man was chosen by Pope and Sky.
Gracious.
And they went with it for a good 45 seconds to a minute. And you could tell Melina's answers were like very uncomfortable because she didn't know what to say. And I could only assume in her head, she's like, did they change this without telling me? Did they do something without telling me? I'll just roll with it because that's what a professional does. But it just was awkward. It was very cringy.
What she should have said is, you idiots, because she's a heel anyways, you idiots, I didn't pick that guy. So chances are she forgot.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, there we go. You know, another editing error that, you know, a comment. But, you know, honestly, too, though, errors happen all the time on wrestling shows like that. So I'm not gonna give NWA too much of a hard time on it.
I'm going to give him
a Jim Ross moment.
I'm going to give him that hard time because I felt like this was something they could have fixed in post very, very easily. Like, literally,
right.
They could have just had Joe Galli calling the match on top of that audio, you know?
Right.
And they could have just ignored it. Or they could have even just been silent. Oh, wow, what a great way to start this match. We were just totally, you know, lost in the match, forgot to talk, whatever they wanted to do. I felt like this was a really good match. Crimson, who has been mostly working a face in Power, looked like a heel. The Mystery Man, who's kind of been sounding like a heel, was working as a babyface in peril, almost the whole match. But I felt like this was a good match. I felt like it was a smart decision to have that match go to a no contest or time count out, because you kept Crimson looking strong, and depending on what you do with the War Kings post the Champion Series, Crimson might be better suited to be a solo wrestler at this point. And so he looked good. He wasn't able to be beaten. And then with the same thing, you know, you had the Mystery Man who fought hard, right? He fought hard and didn't give up. You know, he goes to the gym at 5:30 in the morning. He trains, he eats, he goes to bed, and he gets up at 7:30 in the morning and does it all over again. So I was happy with this match. I thought it was really good. DK, what were your thoughts on this one?
Oh, man.
I wasn't as happy with this one as I was with most of the matches in this series so far. I thought, first of all, they need to stop talking about, gee, I wonder who Mystery Man is. Because they're setting up for a letdown on that.
100%.
You know, change his name to Mr. Mystery, never mention that he might be somebody again. And, you know, that they just need to, you know, we all remember when, you know, Sparky Plug or whatever his name was became Bob Spark Plug Thurman, and then, you know, Bob Spark Plug Holly, and then Bob Holly, and then Hardcore Holly, or whatever. I don't remember all his different incarnations. But yeah, they need to swerve on him. He just needs to be a masked wrestler. And they need to stop talking about who it might be underneath the thing. And again, I realized a lot of this was filmed beforehand, but they should have done that from the beginning, because like I said, you're setting up for disappointment if you're making it sound like, gee, that's somebody under that mask. Well, it does somebody, but again, takes it off. Most people won't know who he is. So, and nothing against him as a talent.
No.
I'm just talking about what they're taking away from him as a talent by not focusing on that. Now, that being said, this is the first time that I kind of really saw him in there with a really big guy in Crimson, and he's very, very pale, which makes, the good thing is it makes every slap show up nice and red. He's also just, I don't know, Kevin, we'll get your input here when you talk about it a little bit, but he doesn't strike me as being in just great shape. Better shape than fat guy like me. But there were times he almost looked like he could be a little bit on the flabby side or soft side.
Soft is the word.
Soft? Okay. Yeah, and it was just, I don't know. I don't feel like this match did him a lot of favors. He was beat up through most of it. His pale skin makes it look like he was beat up for most of it. And whereas Crimson's a very solid-looking guy, Mr. Mystery didn't look overly solid. Now, overall, the match was fine. It was good for what it was. I liked it as part of the show and as part of the series, but I can't sit there and say I was blown away by it or it was great. Wow, and okay. Unfortunately, I was too distracted by some of the other things involving Mr. Mystery there. So Kevin, what were your thoughts?
I from a wrestling standpoint, like just from being a wrestler, like I always put myself in both guys' spots when I'm watching the match. First of all, I thought Crimson looked pretty good. Didn't look bad, didn't look great, but he looked pretty. It didn't look average. He looked, pretty good. It was a hard-hitting match. I always like a good physical match. But he, Mystery Man got his lunch ate. And, I kind of agree with Jay that it seemed like the roles were reversed. That Mystery Man has been played up as a heel, and yet he just got the crap beat out of him. His offense looked sloppy when he had offense. Nothing that he's done to me is even innovative, much less impressive. And like you said, DK, he's soft. A lot of the wrestlers, I'll give the credit, and there's a lot of them, I can name a few off the top of my head, that have gotten in a lot better shape from the last couple of shows, or the last couple of series of tapings. And it seems like Mystery Man has gotten actually in worse shape. So I felt like he looked better the last time I saw him, or maybe I'm wrong. But he just, like you say, just was not impressive. And a lot of his offense was really wonky. And, Jay, you said it. You said more than one time, it was a good match. It was a good match. But if the heel's not the heel and the face isn't the face, that's not a good match. That's not good. I agree that it was physical. I agree that the majority of the moves were solid, but it's pro wrestling. And you need to tell a story. And if you've been telling a story week over week, and then you come out there and just totally drop your story, have zero personality in the match, I kind of agree with you guys. The Mystery Man thing is set up for failure all the way across, all the way around, all the way across the board, and it's not looking good for that.
Well,
and Crimson, go ahead. Though, timeout. Though, the body slam on the floor was great. It might have been the highlight of the show.
I popped.
I loved it.
But
that doesn't make it a good match to me.
The other thing that I really enjoyed about the match, and it took me back a little bit to Samoa Joe at the New Japan of USA tapings back in 2004 when he wrestled Togi Makabe, and in the match he broke out what was called the King Kong drop a power bomb into an STF. And now I know it was a half crab and not an STF, but when I saw the masked man, the mystery man, do that power bomb out of nowhere and then turned it into a half crab, and while holding the half crab, start pounding on the kneecap of Mr. Crimson, I popped huge for that, because to me that was a solid, like, oh man, it was a throwback type of move for me. It was a good move. It was a good way to end the match, because he sat there and held onto that knee. He was trying to force the submission. So, like, I get what you guys are saying, but I'm still going to say I enjoyed that match. And it was definitely the best match that Mystery Man has had on Power, and maybe even the best match that Crimson has had on Power.
I mean, when it comes to the match itself, I'm not as down on it as Kevin is. I think because I basically enjoyed it. My joy was kind of stolen by some of these other things that, I was talking about. And which kind of goes to the whole point of Mystery Man anyway. Like Faith or Heel, I thought Mystery Man was supposed to be the face because he was brought in by Billy Corgan. And, the idea was that Corgan was having issues in general with, like, strictly business or whatever. But he's not been associated with that storyline at all. He doesn't really have a storyline.
This is true.
He was brought in by Billy Corgan. We don't know why. He talks very monotone.
Total off the wall side question. DK, are you gonna watch Suicide Squad?
Yes.
Jay, I know you will too. I know DK's a big DC fan.
I'm actually gonna take my 16-year-old who's about to be 17 to go see it tomorrow night. Little daddy daughter.
They're about to be 17.
Yeah.
Brother, we'll be lifting you up. We'll be lifting you up every night, brother. We'll be lifting you up, man. And listen, if you need somebody to come out to California and put some hands on somebody that's messing with your girl, all right, you know the guy to call. I'll come out there and I'll pay my own way out there. You just got to give me a place to stay, and I'll bust some heads out there. You always got somebody to have your back.
I taught Jay how to sit on the front porch or the front of the front yard in a chair, cleaning the shotgun with a shot of brown liquor bottle.
That's so Texas.
Yeah, exactly. So, so Jay's gone out and got himself some brown liquor.
Oh, there's always brown liquor in my house.
Yeah. And so Jay's gone and got himself some brown liquor.
I've got 3 girls. There's always brown liquor in this house. But let's get to the fatal four, and the dogs are girls
Jay,
too.
It's just getting good.
I have 3 daughters. I have a teenage teenage daughter who's about to be a woman, and then I've got my wife, and then I have my mother-in-law lives with me, and then the dogs that we have in the house, all girls too. So I legitimately am the only man in this house. But that brings us to the fatal 4-way.
That's a lot of estrogen there.
Now, this was a little bit odd to me because they didn't really specify the rules of this, and up until this point, these alternates were just supposed to be alternates. They were never really supposed to have a role in the scoring. They were supposed to be there in case somebody got hurt. And in this fatal 4-way, not only did the winner receive 7 points, which I kind of understand because it's the first of the only multi-man matches, but the loser would lose points. And so that was kind of odd to me as well. But we had Jordan Clearwater representing Aaron and Taran. We had Renaro representing Team Camille Idol. We had Jeremiah Plunkett representing Aldous and Melina. And we had Kevin's favorite, Colby Corino, representing Pope Sky.
I would have loved to wrestle Colby Corino back in my day. I would have beat that dude like a red-headed stepchild, man. Carry on. Sorry. I was just fantasizing there for a second.
So this match was almost exactly what you thought it would be. A lot of 2-on-1 offense, but with getting the other guy out of the ring. They put everyone just kind of like in this stall pattern, I guess. You saw a lot of teamwork with Jordan Clearwater teaming up with Sal Rinauro. Jeremiah Plunkett, he's a guy that I have a lot of respect for from what he's done in the past. He's a former NWA Mid-South heavyweight champion. He was also, or was it Southern heavyweight champion? Southern heavyweight champion. And he held one of the titles in Australia briefly. He's also challenged for the 10 pounds of gold against Satoshi Kojima. He was like the dude at NWA Saw. So I've always had a lot of respect for what Jeremiah Plunkett does and who he is and what he's been. I hate to see him in the role that he is now. I'd kind of like to see him in a tag team where maybe somebody who's got a better name that could carry it, but Plunkett could do some of the heavy lifting in the match. But all in all, it was a fine match. The result, you had Colby Corino kind of calling the shots, very cocky. William Patrick Corgan on commentary kind of even put over the fact that, part of the reason why he's here is his heritage and his his proximity to Steve Corino and his
it's
legacy.
Not his work. It's not his work rate ability, not at all.
I hear you say that, but there's a lot of folks out there who really are into this kid. I'm just whatever with it. I saw when he did that nip up, he stepped on poor Sal Rinauro's arm, and I thought, man, that's.
Can I interject on that? I'm glad you brought up the nip up thing.
Sure.
How many of those do we have to see a show across the wrestling world anymore? Everybody does it. It's like become the new super kick. Like, stop it. Like, do the lucha front flip thing up, the handspring up or something. But for God's sakes, please stop kipping up. All right, carry on.
Kevin, you know what? That's a good a segue. Why don't you give us your thoughts real quick? Plunkett scores the DDT on Corino, so he gets the 7.
Honestly, I'm not a huge Plunkett fan, but definitely not a Plunkett hater either. Just because I really like that he's very good at executing his moves. He has a fairly bland character, but I think that's the point. And again, he is what he is, and I think he plays to what he is really well. I think he was, in this match, not the best wrestler in the match. I felt like if I'm booking that match, Clearwater needed a win. He's too much of a talented guy to be, dwindling at the bottom of a mediocre roster. So he's a guy, kind of like, pick him out, like I would say about Lady Frost, that they really have something good there. And, to be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody scoops that kid up eventually, and NWA is left holding the bag kind of thing. Because, and then they end up looking silly. Because I really think Clearwater is he's a talented wrestler, has a great look, and he has charisma. So, I mean, that's a big chunk of stuff to have in terms of being a young wrestler. So I just think the guy needs development, and I don't think green guys wrestling green guys is a way to develop. But I'm not calling Clearwater green. I know Plunkett's been around. I know Sal's been around, but this is not a match that's going to really develop a young talent like Jordan Clearwater. In fact, Jordan Clearwater became an afterthought in the match. And I just don't agree with it. I don't think he's top tier in their talent roster right now, but I don't think he's getting a good fair shake in terms of the way that they're booking him and using him. And no offense to Jeremiah Plunkett, maybe he is the best guy in the match, but I felt like in that match, Jordan Clearwater should have been the one to walk away with the victory. And again, I'm not a big fan of Colby Corino. And honestly, I love Sal Rinauro. I don't want to down the guy, but his in-ring skills are just really not up to par with what I think this show really is. And again, I think as the NWA continues to move upwards, which what we talked about earlier in the show, some of this stuff will get ironed out because the real talent will kind of start to rise to the top, and some of these guys you'll probably go, oh, I remember back when NWA had Sal Rinauro. Because no offense to Sal, I just think it's kind of like they brought up ECW on this show. Early on in ECW, you had guys that you go, how did they get on the show? But as the company started moving up, you had less and less and less of that because better and better talent wanted to be involved. And the fact that some of the names that they've been dropping over these next two pay-per-views, you're going to see a lot more names start coming out of the woodwork just to kind of get their name out there too. So again, not a knock on the match. I kind of, with you, Jay, I'm a little confused why they even had it and why, if you're going to take points away, I mean, really just adding points is the same thing. So I don't understand what taking points away really, the point of it just makes it count for more. But whatever, these guys were supposed to be alternates and they weren't. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm talking too much about this match because it really was a fairly insignificant match as far as I was concerned, except for in the Champion Series standings. It actually was probably the most impactful match that they've had since they started.
And that is why this match took place. Because I didn't understand the rules. I didn't understand why they were doing it until the results happened. And then when the results happened, I was like, oh, okay. Now it makes sense. But they had put themselves in a situation where the oldest team couldn't win because the score was 12-2. And so even if they had won the final match, it just would have been 12-7. So no way the oldest team could have won. But when you give a weird number like 7 points, more than any other way to earn points, well, now all of a sudden, Aldous has 9. And when you take away 3 points, well, now all of a sudden, Hub's team has 9. They're tied. So now your main event means something. Because it didn't mean anything beforehand, as far as the championship series was concerned.
Right.
So
good job, Devin. I didn't pick up on any of that.
No, I saw it too.
I did not think about it until I saw the conclusion and the way all of a sudden they were tied. And it was, by the way, all this team did not win a single match. The best they got was a draw. And I'm happy about that. So anyway, overall, I didn't pay much attention to this match. The wrong person won in that it should have been Clearwater. The right person lost in that I don't like Reno. I will say this much about Pluckett, that after he hit that DDT and he put the cover on Reno, I like the way it looked like he basically had rolled him up. He hooked one leg with his arm, he hooked one leg with his other leg. That's how you pin a guy. I mean,
that was picture perfect pin right there.
And again, that was kind of that veteran move that somebody like Pluckett, who's been around long enough and been around for years, stuff like that, that he would know to do something like that. And, he's been on TV and, was kind of the guy at one point. Has been both a top heel and top face. I don't know what Kevin's doing there. So
I was sending a kiss to my wife. Don't mind me.
Oh, I thought you were saying he did it perfectly or whatever. I'm just like, okay.
Sorry.
Kevin suddenly loves Plunkett. He didn't like him earlier, but now he loves him. So, but anyway, yeah, I can't complain about the match because I didn't watch it enough to complain about it.
Terry McDermott just said anybody but Colby.
Yeah.
We're starting to be haters.
So anyway, I don't know.
Well, let's go to the next match then.
Yeah, we can.
So
we're pushing 2 hours. We probably need to finish.
So the next match is Camille Idol versus Aaron and Taran, Kratos and Tyrus, a rematch from back from the attack, the NWA returned. And there's a lot of parallels between their first encounter and this encounter. Neither one of them were great. It was a Haas fight, and it was a little bit more interactive. It was a little bit more... Tyrus took a little bit more off of Kratos. What I'm trying to say is Kratos got a little bit more offense in on this match. But at the end of the day, the finish was that elbow drop from Tyrus. That's the same elbow drop that he dropped on Kratos to get his first victory in the NWA. And I don't know, it wasn't the worst match I've ever seen. Tyrus actually looked decent in this match, but it was
Tyrus
still
lost some weight.
But it was still a Tyrus match, and I still was just it still wasn't great. But DK, what were your thoughts on this one?
Just real quick here. In one of those where the bar is relative, it was a decent match for the two guys involved. Okay?
Right.
So we'll leave it at that. Decent match for the two guys involved. Kevin?
Yeah, here y'all are gonna all be shocked when I say this, but I really liked this match.
Of course you did, because you like big dudes.
Well, yeah, I love these kind of fights, but as long as they make sense, Not
sure how Jay meant that.
Well,
I didn't mean like that.
It's known in the wrestling world amongst my peers that I have a type. So, if you ever seen the guys that I traveled with, they're all guys like Tyrus and Kratos. But I really enjoyed the match, to be honest, because they wrestled a big man's match. Granted, Tyrus did an arm drag, but even that was like a big man's arm drag. It wasn't like a steamboat arm drag. I liked how they walked around. I liked how they sized each other up. I liked how they took their time. And Tyrus really has lost some weight. I mean, I looked at him when he was standing sideways, and I looked at him from the side, I was like, wow. Like, his stomach is not as big as it was when he first started with NWA. And he is moving around the ring a lot better. And Kratos even, I thought, looked improved in terms of just his physique. He's got a ways to go, in my opinion. He's got a great base. God, the guy, lost a little bit of body fat. He would be one of the best built guys in the company. So I think, all in all, I really liked the match. And in fact, I felt like it was the best match I've seen from both guys. And again, kind of like what DK said, though, we are talking about two guys that are fairly limited in what they can do. They're definitely not the top tier work rate guys in the NWA. But again, being big guys like that, they're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be the top tier bad dudes that drop bombs in the ring. And there were some bombs thrown around in that match. That was a heavy hitting match. And unless your guys are that size, the shots those guys are throwing in the match, you're gonna know you got hit. So I really liked that part of it. I liked that they didn't try to do too much. I liked that the ring positioning was pretty good. I felt like they worked the camera, and I liked the finish because that elbow looked like it sucked. And that's a good finish, man. If you're Kratos and you're gonna get beat by something, because remember, that was on the hard part of the ring. That wasn't in the middle of the ring. That was over by the apron where the ring is hard as hell. And he dropped that elbow on him there, and I'm looking at that going, hey, that's a finish. Like, good God, like, that was awful. And that's what a finisher should be, especially from a guy like Tyrus. So again, probably Jay, it's kind of like I thought that the Mystery Man match was better technically than this match by far. But I felt like this match actually made sense and told a story based on the stories that we've been seeing on a regular basis with the NWA. So I felt like it was a continuation of what they've been doing, and I think that was good. And I don't think the guys wrestled a bad match at all, especially given who was in the ring. So was it the best match on the show? No. Was it a 5-star match? No. But I still felt like it was a good wrestling match. What was going on there, DK? Not wearing any pants or what?
I'm putting on real wrestling, so Didn't realize the sound was on, so I had to get it turned down.
So that brings us to the main
By
event.
the way, I don't know who's booking the Olympics, but whoever had Kyle Day going out in the first round on a technical superiority point thing, they blew that one. So I'm very upset with whoever booked that.
James H. Jackson Jr. said, I felt like I was finally watching traditional NWA wrestling this week, and I hope they keep this up. Now that brings us to the main event. This is the match that I actually enjoyed the most. And I like I said, I was pretty good with all of these matches, even Kratos and Tyrus. I was good with it because they did tell a story, and we didn't have to have 100 promos to get here, and nothing was convoluted except for that alternate 4-way. Everything else was pretty straightforward. And not only that, but we got 5 matches on the show. And we got Aldis Molina, Slice Boogie, whatever this is he does, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you got Pope Sky's Jax Dane. Now, we're huge Jax Dane fans on this show. We make no qualms about it. He's a former national heavyweight champion. He's a former North American heavyweight champion. He's a former tag team champion. And he's a former world's heavyweight champion. This guy, I feel like maybe Lady Frost and he are the only two who are so severely underutilized on this show. But tonight, or rather Tuesday night, Jax Dane put in some work. He muscled that kid around the ring. He beat him up like you owed him money. He wasn't being compassionate or soft. He went out there and did his damn job. And I was happy to see it. He wins with a lariat that literally took Slice Boogie 180 degrees and spun him around. And I loved it. And this is what I want to see out of a Jax Dane match. He wins the points. Aldis Molina out of the Champion Series, and Pope Sky advance. We'll go to you first, DK. Thoughts on this match?
Hey, it was what it needed to be. Probably the best looking Dane match since I've come back from COVID. He, looked big. He looked dominant. He looked strong. Stole when he needed to. Didn't sell when he didn't need to. And he won. And he won convincingly. And so it's what needed to happen. They did it right. Props. And, for the show overall, I don't think this week was as good as last week, but this week is, 5,000 times better than, some of their shows prior to this championship series. So, I'll take more of this anytime. We actually got 5 matches in 55 minutes.
5 legit matches too. No goofball matches.
No, well, 4-way's a little goofball, but
no dude comes down and 2 guys lay down. Tyrus lays on top.
Yeah.
I didn't have any of that. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
DK, do I have the floor?
It's your turn.
Okay, just check. DK, what was that term you use when you like start talking a lot? What is that called?
I can't hear you. What?
What was the term you use when you start talking a lot? When you kind of go off on a rant? You used it earlier and I already forgot it.
Tirade?
Tirade?
No, like take the show hostage or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, but no, I really liked this match a lot too. This match, I've Slice Boogie has grown on me like a bad fungus, man. And I'm gonna say this again to none of the wrestlers that listen because they probably don't. But if they were listening, I would say, props to you guys minus Mystery Man because it looks like everybody's starting to get in a lot better shape. Majority of them. I feel like a few guys are going the other direction. But Jax Dane looked good in this match. I mean, his body looked good. His gear was lights out. He looked like Jax Dane to me. So I really liked that. I really liked the way he positioned himself in the match. I really enjoyed the way the guys moved around. Him and Slice Boogie are almost kind of made for each other in terms of their size and the kind of wrestlers that they are, because Slice Boogie does a lot of athletic stuff, but he's no punk. I mean, he's not a weak wrestler at all. And again, I might, you know, if I hit the lottery, I might buy him some boots. But other than that, you know, it's hard at this point. It's really hard to have a beef or have a problem with Slice Boogie at this stage, because he really has, I think, developed as much as any wrestler on the roster. And again, somebody that, and I don't mean to harp on the Jordan Clearwater thing, but this is the kind of development we could have seen from Clearwater as well, had they used him in the same fashion that they're using Slice Boogie. Notice that they're putting Boogie in there with guys that are veterans. Notice that he's not ever in there with a guy that he's smaller than or that he's bigger than. These are things that are helping him get out of that indie wrestling style and into a much more big league style wrestling, which I think is great, a great preparation for, you know, television style wrestling against heavyweights. So again, I think Slice Boogie's making the most of his opportunity with the NWA, and I really can see him develop. And I liked it. And again, like I said, Jax Dane looked really good. I felt like the psychology of the ring was really good. I felt like this battled with the opening match, with the women's match, about which match I liked the most in the show. I would say I like this match second most. I would like the heavyweight match third. But it was a good match. It was a good finish. It was a straight finish. The clothesline was brutal, and not only the clothesline, but the setup for the clothesline got me fired up too. I mean, just the way he got set up. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I love. So I really liked this show as far as for what it is for the NWA. I mean, this was a good show for the company. It was solid. No, it wasn't. I'm not going to talk about what it wasn't, just because I really liked it. I really thought they did really good in this show. You know, they told a story without having to have a bunch of promos. The show, you know, it made sense. And not only that, but there's stuff going on that I'm not even aware of. You know, thanks to you guys, I'm figuring out the scores and all that stuff. You know, mostly I just watch the matches to break them down technically so that you guys can get kind of that perspective. But heck of a night for the NWA as far as I'm concerned. A lot of good stories being told in the ring. A lot of character development. A lot less stuff to be negative about this week than they have been in a while. So again, I really like the show. I'm not gonna say it's the greatest show I've ever seen. I'm not gonna say it's better than AEW or NXT. But for NWA, they've been impressing me a lot, and I'm starting to take their brand a little bit more seriously because of shows like this.
Well, I'll counter that and say the last 2 weeks have been better than WWE or AEW, or not next, but you know, just in my opinion, this is what I want to see in wrestling. I want to see these big guys having big guy matches. Even the worst match tonight was better than a lot of what we've seen in some of the previous episodes.
Yep.
You know, the 4-way was a great bathroom break, and you know, it served its purpose. It's sad that it was a very obvious purpose, but you know, it served its purpose. And I don't know what to say other than USA number one. Go Gable Stevenson. Not Stevenson.
So I want to point out something real quick. That Dave Scooby, and maybe Dave, you can show me maybe a shot or a photo of this on Twitter, of Slice Boogie not in his New York gear, when he wrestles in MLW. I'd like to see that. I like to see that look.
Yeah.
If you don't mind,
Kevin.
I'd like to look at that.
Kevin, I want to point out that while you were gone, MLW presented a show that reintroduced a third generation of LAX, or maybe it's a fourth generation. I don't really know at this point. But Conan brought out our boy, Danny Limelight, with Slice Boogie, and it was pretty awesome.
Ooh, what a fire team that is.
Yeah.
As much as I love Pablo Esco, but geez, Slice, and I'll be interested to see that.
I hope at some point Pablo Esco gets brought into it. But guys, we went 2 hours and 9 minutes talking NWA today. So we're going to wrap it up now.
No, guys, let me tell you what we did. We ain't seen each other in a few weeks, and we hung out and we talked some wrestling. That's what we did, and I appreciate you guys for it.
So we're going to wrap things up here. We do appreciate everyone who's joined us in the chat. I mean, Rosville, Valerie, Jimmy LB, Dave Scooby, Willie Bowen, I don't want to say the same names twice, Terry McDermott, What Would Luthez Do, Sean Mega, Wrestling with MMA, and anyone else who I might have missed. Oh, Dodie, I don't want to forget Dodie. Again, guys, we really appreciate you guys joining us every Thursday here on YouTube or on Twitch at the Alliance blog. And it's our way of relaxing after a tough week. You guys have always been great joining us, keeping that dialogue going. This is the real hashtag NWA fam, and I'm very proud to be a part of it, and I'm proud you guys are here too. Kevin, it's been a while. Social media, how can they follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Kevin Lee Frazier, Frazier. And if you follow these guys, I'll probably be under one of, you can find me under their accounts if you can't find me just via the search. On YouTube, you can find my wrestling matches from way back in the day. Kevin Douglas 247. Kevin Douglas was my ring name. The modern day hero. Smolder. In Instagram, it's Kevin Lee Frazier. Same as Twitter. I'm not a hugely active social media person just because it was so much. I spent so much time on social media during my wrestling career that, I do it when I want to do it. But I do always respond to stuff, and I do like the stuff that we've got going on in terms of the NWA on Twitter, and I've really enjoyed it. And again, anybody that you want to go out and follow my stuff, I'd appreciate it. And I would love to interact with you more than anything, because that's the only reason I have social media anymore. It's just to be social.
And DK, the same question to you. How can they follow you on social? Social? Mike Sosha?
I'm antisocial. But if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at DKMFWTF.
And of course, if you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to give a thumbs up, like it, subscribe. We definitely could use your guys' support. It's us versus the algorithm. And as much as we enjoy this audience, we would like to grow it so we have more NWA community here on YouTube and on Twitch.tv. If you would like to financially support this podcast, you could do so by buying one of these really cool hats or one of these really cool t-shirts. And I have it on good authority that there'll be some new t-shirts coming to our marketplace very, very soon. I'll make sure you guys get to see them first before they actually go out on sale. And if you want to follow the Alliance blog, you could do that on all social medias. And we're talking Tumblr. Yes, we're back on Tumblr. You can follow us on TikTok. Yeah, we're on TikTok, no dances. Also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course YouTube and Twitch.tv. You can find us on all the social medias, and we're here just talking NWA with you fine people. But for Kevin Frazier, who is back,
can I jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
Because I have been gone for a couple weeks, and I just want to say, to all the folks in the chat and to you two knuckleheads, I really missed all you guys. I'm glad to be back, glad to be healthy. I really enjoy what we do here, and I just very grateful to Jay for putting this thing together, making it happen, to DK for giving me as much of a hard time as he possibly can, and all you guys and gals in the chat room, and all you guys and the gals in the chat room, glad to be back, glad to be talking wrestling, and glad we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
And thanks to Rosville for subscribing. Appreciate it, man. And we'll see you guys next week here. Oh, there it is. We'll see you guys here next week, Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific for the pre-party, and back here on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific for the Alliance Guys podcast. That's Kevin. That's DK. I'm Jay. And we'll see you next week at the matches.